Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Toast to the Arts Show. Today, we welcome back artist Victoria Chick. She is a contemporary figurative artist. She also collects early 19th and 20th century prints. And she is based in Silver City, New Mexico, which is in the southwest corner of the land of enchantment. And not only does she live out there, a beautiful region, but she's also works on the development of the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center. They are busy working on trying to get a building, fundraising, just doing amazing things. They have a lot of donations of art, but we're talking about a fine art museum, but also an educational center. So it's very, very cool. Go to that website, swrm-art.org. And also, of course, to keep up with Victoria, you can go to victoriachick.com. She's on our show every third Saturday. And today we're going to be talking about an artist called Eric Bransby. He was born in 1916, passed away in 2003. And this came from a conversation about, yes, again, the historic Jefferson Highway, which Victoria knows very well. So welcome back, Victoria. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I am feeling very good today.
Oh, good. Good. We all want to feel good. You know, it's interesting because, you know, we've got this thing going about the Jefferson Highway, and it's kind of this rabbit hole, right, Nancy, that we keep driving on. It's like, oh, we could make a detour there. And so the Jefferson Highway goes from Winnipeg, Canada, down through Minnesota. You've got Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, a little bit of Arkansas. In fact, we're just kind of off of what was supposed to be part of the Jefferson Highway today as we record this, and it goes to the New Orleans in Louisiana. And this month of August is American Artists Month, celebrating American art and artists. And so I was like, hey, Victoria, do you know any artists that we should talk about on the Jefferson Highway? We have this show coming up because we do that show every fourth Thursday, and Victoria will be part of that because there's also Thomas Benton, right, that we need to talk about. And so,
Thomas Benton, yes.
Yes, Thomas Hart. I got to put that heart in there. But you got into Eric Bransby, so this turned into a little rabbit hole of his work. But you met him, so tell us a little bit about when we look at his art, because it seems that he did more, like he's got beautiful murals. Like Liberty, Missouri is on the Jefferson Highway. He did murals there, and you can see them in the actual city hall chambers. But yeah, so that's where it kind of the story spurred out of. And everyone, the link to Victoria's article on this on Eric Bransby is in the show notes. So check it out. It's also on blendradioandtv.com. But yeah, this is a rabbit hole because you keep discovering things about him.
Well, I do. I feel like it's a wonderful topic, mainly because he was such a wonderful guy. He was my college instructor at University of Missouri in Kansas City. We arrived there the same year because I transferred in as a sophomore, and it was his first year there. So I signed up for his drawing class, which turned out to be a great experience. He was an excellent teacher, and although I don't work like him anymore, I learned so much from him about the anatomy because I like to draw people at the time, and since I am a figurative artist, I still think of him actually when I'm laying out a painting. Because he was just spot on about everything that I learned about the figure, and of course that's translated into what I do now, which is mostly cats. But I'm still looking at the anatomy of the animal and why it moves and so forth. So he was great. I had him for 2 years, and then of course I went off to graduate school. So after I didn't see him for quite a while, I didn't see him for about 6 years. I did graduate school. I moved back to Kansas City, and then I ran into him again and invited he and his wife over for dinner. I hadn't known her before, and we just had a wonderful evening. And I got to know a little bit more about his background, which is a kind of information that when you're a student you don't ask your teacher. What did you do before you got here? So that was a fun thing, and it told me a lot more about him, and why he was doing the things he was doing. But he stayed in Kansas City. He for 20 years, I think. He was 20 years teaching at UMKC, and then he went back to Colorado, which is where he had come from before I met him. And he did a lot of work, in Colorado in his really early career. And then, of course, from the time he left UMKC, he worked in Colorado. So there's a lot written about Colorado. But when I was investigating him, I realized that he was really busy in Kansas City too. So we talk about the Jefferson Highway, an artist along the Jefferson Highway. He's really one of the great artists that you could still see his work for the most part. Most of it's still there. The thing about murals is they're really great when you first do them, but you never know. Yeah. I mean, as an artist, I find this really, really sad because you want to think of your work as lasting, and people will, always be able to see it. And that doesn't happen with a lot of mural work because the buildings get knocked down or they get renovated or whatever. So sometimes they're able to save the murals. If there's enough interest, they will move the mural before they wreck the building, which is not always possible. But he came up with a different way of doing mural work, and I don't know that it was his invention, but he really utilized it. And that a mural is supposed to fit into an architectural space. And so usually you're painting directly on the wall, the architectural wall. And if there are windows or doors or, arches or anything like that, your design has to take that into account. So he had an experience where one of his murals was destroyed, and he decided to use movable panels instead. So he was designing these panels to fit into an architectural space, but that they could be moved. After if something was going to happen to the building, his whole work would not be lost.
That's smart.
So it really was smart. So all the murals except for maybe two that he did in Kansas City are on these movable panels.
That's awesome.
And so. Yeah, so they haven't been lost. So that's really a good thing. He designed murals at UMKC. He designed murals at almost every college, I think, and university area in that Midwest location. So they're on both sides of the state line, and.
Wow.
And they're all accessible for viewing. So if anybody is going through there, they want to check them out. They're easy to see.
Well, now why do we do this? Like we were just there, and we were right there by Liberty, Missouri, Jesse James land. Yeah.
That's cool.
And I'm like, why did we miss all? We should have talked to you.
I think
I'm not driving the Jefferson Highway before talking to you ever again.
Well,
gosh,
I mean, there is a lot, and I think the town. Well, those murals now, gosh, are 40 years old, probably the ones in the city hall, and I don't know why they're worth seeing, and they're worth taking a few miles off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. So that's why the town doesn't advertise the fact that they're there. But
That's weird.
That's the town's loss. And
Well, I
everybody
think
else.
I'm glad we're doing this, and that's the thing. I think in travel, you know, the Jefferson Highway has amazing public art, and I think the Midwest needs to have a big, round of applause for public art and the music world too.
Right.
And also just the architecture, how they've saved architecture. I mean, what I didn't expect that. I remember, going to Colorado and places like Colorado had those old mining towns, and you'd see these Western, pioneer kind of,
Right.
I didn't expect that in the Midwest. And there are movements where people are really doing things, and you see murals that come up, and it's this town pride. And sometimes, like, I know we keep saying we've got to do this. We're supposed to be doing on this podcast now the one mural towns. But hey, we're kind of in that theme. But excuse me, Eric Bransby did more than one mural. But it is interesting going through there, and I think it's just everyone's looking at the tourism, but art is tourism. People travel for art, and I think sometimes it gets. And Eric Bransby, I think people sometimes you get lost in the university vortex. I don't know how to explain that, but do you know what I mean? You're in the so the academics will know you, but not the people on the other side. Does that make sense? Where the academia know you, you're a name there, but maybe not on the.
He's very Leonardo da Vinci.
That's really so right.
Yeah,
you are
he
so
really,
right.
really is, and it's too bad that people don't seem to see that in him. He really is like almost a reincarnation.
You're really right, because when I first looked at his work, because he has the anatomy down, right? But he doesn't. And at that point, I don't think we were as overweight of a society as we are now. So he's got, and I'm looking at the murals of the Midwest, right?
That's funny.
He's showing hard workers mining. I did not know like how much mining went down in the Midwest. Like you think of the Southwest, like go back to Colorado. I mean, I almost want to put Colorado in the Midwest in some ways. It makes sense too,
Sort of.
And then Appalachia had it, but he showed that hardworking. So everybody has movement and character, and this sternness of like
they're staunch.
But not overweight, because you're not.
No, but they're like
you're working too hard.
No,
they're holding their place. Like they're determined. They have in their faces, in their determination. It's in their body language, in their face, how they hold their hands.
Well, let's compare him to Thomas Hart Benton for a second, and you'll see that Thomas Hart Benton was Bransby's instructor initially at the Kansas City Art Institute, and so his work is much different. It's much more angular. Benton's was kind of flowing, and there was a softness to it. I mean, they moved, and everything is moving in Denton's work. Bransby's everything moves too, but his figures they might be less realistic, although they are anatomically correct. There was probably it was his choice to do people that way, and it always fit with the architecture. I think he was very into structure. I remember, if he was a contractor, he would have concentrated on foundations. Because to him that was the skeleton was the basis of what was going to happen with the figure. And so, you know, he was really concerned with correctness of the figure, and he also when you take class from somebody at a tender age like I did, you don't realize what they've gone through, who have been their instructors in their lives, and you just sort of think that they've, they're there and they're there to teach you, but where did they get their information? So when I was researching him, besides Thomas Hart Benton as an instructor, early on he had gone to of course, Thomas Hart Benton was a muralist, so we got to keep that in the back of our mind. Then he goes to Colorado. He went to the Broadmoor Academy, which I think is now Colorado Art Institute or something like that. Anyway, the man there was Boardman Robinson, who was a very well-known guy in that area, and he was a muralist. And while he was there, because Boardman Robinson was a muralist, other people who wanted to be muralists or were already muralists came to that area to work with them. And so he met David Sequeiros, who was a Mexican muralist about the same era that Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera were working. So, and Bransby got to be like an assistant for David Sequeiros, which was very valuable to him because he got to do murals. He wasn't just sitting in a class learning. He actually got to, go out and work on a mural under the watchful eye, I guess, of this Mexican muralist. So he was interested in muralists early on. Most of the people who do murals, I would say, are very socially conscious, because they're doing murals because they want to get ideas across to the widest number of people that they can, and murals are a great way to do that. So he had some difficulty with his dad because his dad was a minister, and
oh boy.
So his dad was kind of concerned that he was falling in with these socialists, which he really didn't. He really was pretty normal. But anyway, what else can I say about him?
I did have a question, because going back to his art, because I know Nancy was talking about Vincent van Gogh, and I'm not Van Gogh. You didn't say Van Gogh. No. Yeah, Da Vinci, not Da. Yeah, no,
Da Vinci.
Leonardo.
Yeah. No, Leonardo da Vinci, drawing
because of his illustrations. The way he has, because Da Vinci had that scientific mind, right? And I'm
like it's artistic, but it's still, anatomically correct.
Right. But then, like, I go to Norman Rockwell, who used really vibrant colors and more setting up of the people's, this like idyllic America. Yet there's still this interesting, like in some of it, I can see kind of similarities, this like really fleeting bit of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of this, and I don't know how to explain it other than I don't know if it's just that was the era of what people look like. So Victoria, what would you think? Because I know like Rockwell really had a lot of color. Maybe I'm just looking at murals that got kind of faded out a little bit, but it seems like he didn't overuse color in his work like Rockwell did. So I don't know.
That's true. And I think one of the reasons for that is he went to study color theory with a guy named Joseph Albers, Albers. Albers was, when he studied with him, he was at Yale. And Albers had come from Europe when the Nazis were on the rise, and so there were a lot of creative people that came to the United States at that time. And but Albers had been a muralist of some note in Europe, but his study in the United States was color theory, and if you look him up, Joseph Albers, you'll see he did a lot of things with just squares or just geometric configurations, but the whole focus of his work is the color relationships, and how our perception of color changes depending on the color next to it, for instance. So Bransby learned a lot from him. So all of Bransby's colors, and keep in mind, Bransby is very rational about what he does. He's very analytic, and he is not emotional, particularly in his approach. So he's studying the body. He's primarily a draftsman more than a painter, even though he did paintings. But his paintings are not they're not carried along by the color. Like a lot of people when they paint, color is what really appeals to us. In his work, it was draftsmanship, and he grayed down his colors a lot. He added a complementary color to tone it down, whatever color he was using. So there's a harmony there's a real harmony to all his colors, but they're not exactly exciting colors. I don't know if
the science of color is very complicated. Like if you put a color next to its opposite color, you don't mix it together, you put it opposite, it spikes both colors to be more brilliant. If you mix a little of the opposite color, and it deadens the color you mix it into.
Yes. Yeah, we call it graying it down. So, but that's the fact. You're right, and they can be warm, they can be cool. It just depends what tones you're using to start with. But I think he color was a necessary thing for light and dark. But he was more interested in the drawing itself, in the analyzing of the form.
I can see that. I mean, that's why I say, like Da Vinci, it was more about being accurate to the body shape, and the muscles and the bones, and he was concerned with accuracy, which is why I feel like he's a newspaper guy.
You know, a lot of times.
Go ahead.
A lot of times his figures are taller or seem to be taller than they need to be, and they're kind of
especially the males.
Yeah. So maybe it may have been subconscious because he was a very tall person himself, and and kind of angular. He was
going to say he was angular.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, even though his figures are exaggerated, or they work, and that's because he understood the mechanism of the skeleton and where the muscles originated, where they went back into the next bone. So he was a real genius, I think, and at knowing how to draw a believable figure, even if it was exaggerated, because those figures are lively.
Oh yeah, that's why I keep going back to Da Vinci, because Da Vinci had that where it's still artistic,
Yes.
And it still flows and it still has color, but it's correct, as opposed to like when people got into abstract art and they like your arms over here and your legs stuck over here in the wall somewhere and stuff like that.
Right.
It was kind of like, oh, I don't quite get it.
Well, yeah, but he was also into anatomy. I mean, Da Vinci really was. I mean, look at that one famous, the medical thingy.
Where his arms are stretched out.
With the little wheel of life behind him. It's interesting to me. I mean, because these are artists that I put in as in kind of in a same as like the botany artists. I absolutely, I think some of my personal favorite art is looking at botany that was the scientific art and bird books, like the old bird books with the illustrations. I mean, because it's still artistic, and but sometimes it's better than the photography to see, because photography, it's like, here's a clear definition. The photography can be fleeting with, birds for sure.
Right.
Birds are a pain, man, unless you have one of those giant, here I am, I'm the king of the telephoto lens things, God,
that's not what we normally call it.
No, I know I'm behaving on the show. You know who they are when you see them on a hike. They're like, look at me. Your camera doesn't do anything like mine. Anyway, I'm just saying, there's some people have an ego attached to their telephoto lens, and some people don't.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the botany part, you see that there's something. These scientific illustrations is like somebody really spent time researching, watching, observing, documenting, and to do this. And I think that's kind of similar with some of these artists we're talking about, Da Vinci. And I think I think Eric Bransby is exactly that, where he's like, it's like, I'm not exactly 100% realistic.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to give you this story it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. There are similarities between the working approach to somebody like Audubon, for example, who was studying and recording because he wanted information. And he's very careful about what the information he gathered, and then you compare him with a different person in time. There's a bird artist named Bishop, for instance, who did a lot of birds, water birds especially, taking off, and his attitude toward the bird was different. He was trying to illustrate the power of the flight, what. The action of the bird. So you have Bransby, and you're comparing him to Leonardo, which is good. As people who spent their time continually. He was continually investigating. Even though they knew it well, they still drew it and investigated the workings of the joints and the way the muscles performed, and what each muscle did, what its function was. So there's a scientific aspect to it. I think, and certainly with Bransby, that he took that information and then put it together in a some people would call it illustration, which it is. But he was working. These murals were all commissions for a certain purpose, and he was able to depict what the people wanted, what the consignor wanted, with the figures that he drew. So he's dealing with, he's taking what he's learned scientifically, and he's translating it into a historical context, whatever event where he was drawing. So it was each one of these artists are more than one thing. I mean, I guess that's where I'm going with this. They study really hard to know anatomy, or they study really hard to understand color, or they study really hard for some other reason. But they take that information and they translate it into it could be an expressive painting, it could be an illustration. It makes the artists are not one dimensional in what they're interested in.
And it's true, like when you start painting something and you want it to be accurate and realistic.
Yeah.
If you go too far, then somebody comes, oh my gosh, it's just like a photo, and thinking that that's kind of a compliment, but it's really not. And so then you're like, oh, so you missed out the emotional quality of the relationship between the artist and the subject.
Yeah.
So the photorealism thing, then just have a photo. Because then you kind of miss the point of doing a painting, which is hard to. That's not the easiest thing to do, especially when you're tackling. It's easy with landscapes. Anybody can do anything they want with a landscape. Yeah. But you're doing people, or you're doing wildlife, or you're doing realistic characters. It isn't that easy.
Right.
Because if you move, like I'm looking at this one painting, there's a guy with a hammer. You move that hammer a little bit to the left or right, it's not accurate. It's not right. It's not going to hit where he's intending to hit, and it's going to look awkward, which could be the focus of the painting if you want him to look like he doesn't know how to use a hammer. But well, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of, you have to be accurate as well as artistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not
you
that
have to understand the mechanics.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to understand it before you mess with it.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot. There's a whole lot that goes into it that we learn in a lifetime. Hopefully, we learn it really soon in our lifetime. But you're holding the hammer is another thing. You've been artists that never held a hammer in his life or her life.
Exactly.
And now they're supposed to show how it's going to be done. They don't know how the arm moves. They don't know how the hammer is held. I mean, we gain experiences that are incorporated into just our brain as long as we live.
Yeah. And do you hold the hammer all the way at the end, or looking at this illustration, do you hold it a couple inches up or an inch up? Where do you actually hold a hammer as a person who actually wields a hammer on a day-to-day basis?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You can see it has the potential to swing. It has the potential. And a lot of things that we look at visually that are painted, we have experience that our brain carries the action through. We know what's going to happen because we understand where they are now. We understand what comes next, or what. So it's interesting. I think our brains are pretty good about that.
Well, from the guy with holding the sack that says Fort Leavenworth, he needs to pull it up. He's about to drop it. You can see that it's sliding down his back. He needs to shift it up.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I love what you say, Victoria, about understanding what they're going through, like what your subjects are doing. And I think it's so true. Like, you go through life, and I was, I remember as a kid going through something, and I was really upset. And I think it had to do with one of the horses, and I was crying, and I'm like, I know I'm being a baby about this. And Nancy's like, well, you want to be a writer, you need to feel these things. And so you need to use that for that. at some point. So it's okay to feel. Number one, you need to feel, otherwise you're going to be one of those crazy people, that we running around and non-feelings, not a good thing.
Yeah. Good advice, Nancy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is, I mean, it's true. It's like, use it in your life. And, if that's kind of resonated with me with good things, bad things, things in life, everything is an experience no matter what you do. You know what I mean? And it may be an experience that doesn't align with your profession or who you are, but down the road, that experience, you had it for a reason. And I think it's also cool that if you, like when we do all these interviews with writers, and I'm like, oh, you're writing a mystery. Well, I'm always curious about writer Google history. That's got it. I mean, murder mystery writers, their Google history has to be the coolest, craziest thing. It's like, hey, how do we murder this person? Like, what do we do with this blood stain? All of that kind of stuff has got to be like, I'm thinking we should do a show just on Google history,
oh boy,
of creative people, because it's the same for an artist. And that's something no one thinks about that's looking at the art. Like, how much work went into that? Did you study what miners go through? Did you go in a mine? Have you, that kind of thing, if you're painting that, or, I think photographers are out in the field. And so it's always interesting, looking at what photographers do, and some overproduce their images to the point of like, seriously, like, and yet at the same time, it's a really cool, beautiful picture. So it sells, and it's attractive. It's beautiful. Or like landscape, right? But, and sometimes they take you beyond what your naked eye can see. So that's also a cool thing. So art is art, man. You either like it, you don't like it. If it gives you a reaction, hell yes, no matter what it is, it's a good thing. And that's, I think that what you're saying about what does it feel like to hold a hammer, go feel it. Get that. Go out in the, if you're doing something on a miner in the heat, go in the heat and try lift up a bag of rocks and see what they did. That's the beauty of going to museums and historic sites and really understanding, I mean, when you go to a museum and you see what women used to wear, we are so lucky as women today. I mean, are you kidding me?
The corsets. I mean, remember that the corsets. You're like, are you kidding me?
I mean, when you think about people going on the Santa Fe Trail West, right? Yeah. Oh, come on, women. Most people were not in the buggy; they were walking on the sides. The stuff was in the buggy. Yeah. And women, I mean, in dresses, and then you had conflicts and. Oh my God.
Wearing a straight jacket on the inside of your outfit.
It's like I'm, going on the Jefferson Highway and realizing what the Pony Express was like. And, we went to Pony Express Lake outside St. Joseph. And Nancy and I are out there, and it's beautiful. We knew that there was a lake for him. And Buffalo Bill has a lake next door. It's all the Missouri conservation area. And and really, all these spots, a lot of fishing is going on in these areas, and a lot of wildflowers. And I want to give my hat off to those areas. The Midwest is doing so much to attract pollinators and preserving their wildflowers, and it's awesome. But you're out there, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And yet you take your bug spray. I'm just saying, take your bug spray. But when you're out there, then you start thinking, well, what was it like to camp out here? We have bug spray. Did they have bug spray back then? Heck no, they did not.
I don't think so.
I mean,
no.
you know what I mean? When you think about pioneers and all of these, when you look at murals and they're depicting the times of back then, I know artists sit and they pore over the books. They'll go to places to get that feel. It's just like a novelist does, or a historian.
Yes. Yeah.
Truly. Or they're there in that time and they already know what it's like, Yeah. So very cool. God, I love these shows with you. I mean, it's like, now my brain is off on another tangent. Like now I'm going to start looking at everyone's skeletons and going, okay, like if anybody looked at my skeleton, they'll say, your butt's too big. You need to align with your skeleton.
That's not your skeleton.
I know, but everyone, Victoria Chick will be back on our Jefferson Highway show coming up on the fourth Thursday of this month of August, and she is here every third Saturday talking art. I wonder if we'll stick on this one mural town theme for September. Who knows what might come up and kind of change our minds? You never know. But we do get to talk about public art quite a bit, and it's really part of American history, really, of telling the story of American history in this country anyway. Mexico, same thing, the different places. So always cool. Artist Victoria Chick or victoriachick.com is the website to go to keep up with Victoria. Her articles in the show notes is also up on blendradioandtv.com. And as I was mentioning about the museum, that a project she, spearheaded and has people helping her to get this going, the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center in Silver City. You can go to swrm-art.org. They are doing a lot of fundraising so they can go get a building of their own. You still accepting donations of art? Do you have places to put it? Or do you? She's like, we need a building, darn it.
we do need a building. We are fast running out of storage space. Yes. Yeah, we have an amazing amount of wonderful art from the 1800s up to contemporary times. And most all of it is done by artists whose names you would recognize, who have work in major museums in this country and even some in Europe. So the art we've got to share with people. We want to because that's what a museum is for. It's to exhibit it to the public and to preserve it for the future, so anybody can see it 100 years from now. So we have this an amazing collection, and we're on our way, really, literally on our way to displaying it. So
awesome.
Exciting. We will take more, and we would love to have anybody who wants to contribute to the museum with art or with a monetary donation to please give us a contact. Awesome. And they can do that through the website.
It's swrm-art.org, standing for Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center. And we've done shows on that. We also have a page up on nationalparktraveling.com about it because, hey, Silver City New Mexico is one of our first places on our Love Your Parks tour where we went to visit the Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument with Victoria. We went together.
Yay!
And we had a wonderful time. That was fun. And they're also on the Continental Divide, which is amazing, and also home to the Gila Wilderness area, which is and the Gila National Forest, one of our first forests in the country, first wilderness areas in the country, and a beautiful, beautiful region. And New Mexico, as I said, is a land of enchantment. Oh man, we're doing all these shows on New Mexico. I'm like, we're homesick for the Southwest a little bit. You'll have
to come back.
Oh, it's hatch chili season. Are you kidding me? Like the chilies are out early this year, and it's time to get your if you're in Santa Fe, get your Christmas on, right? If you want red and green chilies on your plate.
Yeah.
But always good food out in New Mexico. And thank you so much, Victoria. We'll talk to you soon for the Jefferson Highway.
Okay, I'll look forward to it.
Awesome.